Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Metaphysical Minds. I am your host, Shay Parker, and I have a very special guest with me today. She is no stranger to this show or to the airwaves in any way. Now, for those of you that follow this show, you know that we take the guests from bestamericanpsychics.com, and we actually have them right here on Metaphysical Minds with us. So without further ado, I'm going to bring her to the show. She is Miss Jeanne Crescenzo, and she has been with us quite a few times. She is an expert in many levels. We will have her website right here in the comments that you guys can check her out. I'm not going to go through a full bio on Jeanne today, just simply because it's a really short show. We have a lot to cover. And as you guys can see, our topic today is psychic protection. Really exciting topic for a lot of folks. We're going to be talking about psychic attacks, psychic vampires, how the veil is a bit thinner this time of year. So lots of good stuff to get into. I do want to say just a couple of, behind the scenes notes. If you are interested in this show and you like what you're hearing and you would like to subscribe to future shows, all you have to do is type the word SPIRIT, SPIRIT, in the comments section right there. It's not case sensitive. And what will happen is we have this little automated bot thing named Maisie. She will reach out to you and she will subscribe you to future shows of Metaphysical Minds. We air every 2 weeks on Wednesday at noon Eastern. If you miss a show, you can catch it in replay version. If you do hit Spirit, you will get if you do type Spirit in, you'll get a little like autoresponder thingy that says, hey, great, I'm Maisie. I'm going to sign you up, blah, blah, blah. You can unsubscribe at any time, folks. We're not going to spam you. We're not going to like share your email or anything. It's basically just a way to communicate with you about upcoming shows. And if you want to drop off, you can drop off anytime, unsubscribe. Very simple. So also, I would like anybody that is out there listening today, give us a shout out. We love to communicate with our listeners. If you have questions about anything that Jeanne says during the show or any experiences, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a shout out. Tell us where you're from. Ask your questions during the show. We would certainly love to hear from you because that is why we are here doing this. So, all right. So without further ado, I am going to bring Miss Jeanne on. Jeanne, welcome to today's show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So lots to do today. Psychic protection, psychic attacks, psychic vampires, veil, being thin, boundaries, warning signs, lots of stuff to cover. So first and foremost, let's discuss what in the world is psychic attack or a psychic vampire. Let's just start with a very basic.
Wow, such a broad topic right there.
Yeah, right. I know. So jump right in.
So very basically, a psychic attack is sort of like an invasion of your peace, an invasion of your energy that's disruptive, that's violating, that causes you to be confused in any way, that causes you harm in any way. And psychic attack can range from purposeful and malicious to very unconscious and subconscious. So meaning that the energy being projected towards you is either a purposeful act or sometimes very often a very subconscious act. Very rarely do you ever find yourself a subject of a malicious, intentful attack by a skilled individual. And also, it's not just about individuals. It's not just about psychic vampires, but it's about encountering energy that does not resonate, that is very intense, that's disruptive to the nervous system for you sensitive, aware folks who have very highly attuned nervous systems, how to properly deal with that energy so your immune system's not compromised in the end.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Does a psychic attack necessarily have to come from a person?
No.
Or can it be from just, hey, and we all do this. We walk out or we walk into a room sometime and we just feel like this, this like heavy blanket of like, oh, that's just not for me.
Yeah. It's an encounter with any kind of energy that is sort of disruptive to your system, that sort of gets you away from your core. Mm-hmm. Now this is really interesting to me because, and it speaks such volumes on the truth of the situation is when you're in a heart-centered place and you're naturally in a healthy place, most negativity just bounces right off of you. Sometimes even intentional negativity just bounces right off of you. However, if you don't have a strong core sense of self, meanwhile, you're trying to be more open spiritually, that's almost like setting yourself in the line of fire. What you want to do before you open up spiritually is you want to get that core sense of self aligned and intact. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense. Could you give our viewers some tips on kind of how to do that?
Right. So a core sense of self, obviously there are psychological trauma related reasons why that may not be intact. But those areas require us some deep introspection, some deep healing, getting some help for that, dealing with trauma, even to going into energetic reasons like soul retrieval from trauma. Giving away our power is a huge thing that we do. We learn how to do it. We're just like, we give power to authority figures. We give power to our other people's attention. Anything that takes away from our self-care is giving power to something that potentially can disrupt us. And my other thought was too, when I was kind of figuring out, this is such a broad topic to talk about, and even just to fit into 45 minutes in thinking about this is self-care. This is a discipline. This is a self-care, creating an integral aspect of yourself. It's an energetic connection to your soul energy. An awareness of self. People who are too empathic, who do not have a sense of self, or I should say sometimes the reason that they are pulled this way and that way, or feel themselves under attack a lot, is because they're not centering, they're not connecting with their sense of self, they're not grounding. So grounding is a huge aspect of staying out of the line of fire, staying out of the anxiety zone. When we're ungrounded, we tend to be more anxious. We tend to be more aware of other energies in the subtle realms that may or may not be part of our, what do you want to call it, higher purpose, that don't resonate with us, that are just plain negative and dark. So one of the things that I was really thinking about was, what are some of the ways that we can really focus on connecting to that core sense of self? And this is something that I actually teach my mentoring students. It's like the first thing I teach them. It's like, if you're going to be out here doing this kind of work, you need to deal with your closet. You need to deal with a daily discipline. You need to create your practice of self-care. If you don't have that, there is all sorts of things that you're going to end up learning from. It's all about learning. We all get to learn. And sometimes it's not about being afraid, because I don't want people to be afraid. It's not about fear. It's about centering in a core sense of love and a core sense of self that allow you to go, that's not for me. So I'm going to be in command of my energy, and I'm going to either rescind invitation to have that experience, or I'm going to use some kind of positive defense that will allow me to stay in my center. Because really, that's what it is. It's about staying in your center, irregardless of what you're confronted with a sense of confidence that you can go, okay, now I have the tools so that when I encounter these energies that are very, very intense, make me feel overwhelmed, or that I've not ever been exposed to, which will happen. It's just a part of life. How can I effectively deal with them and not go into fear? Because fear just feeds the energy. It feeds the anxiety. It feeds the reaction. When we go into a reactive mode, we're inviting the dance. We're replaying with the energy when we react to it, versus when we realize that we're reacting to it, we can go, okay, I am interacting with something that is negative. But how many people actually know or realize before it's too late that they're encountering a lower energy, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm with you on that. I do understand the not reacting part, or trying to kind of pull that back. But at the same time, is there not, I don't know. I kind of go both ways with this, because I sort of feel like in one sense there's a responsibility to react, like if you see something that is happening, if you see an injustice, if you see someone being bullied, or there's just something that is inherently wrong, and even though that is a negative energy, is it our responsibility to just kind of step back and remove ourselves from that? Or is it a responsibility to kind of step in and say, hey, okay, wait a minute now. I respectfully say this is inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like, right. So I just want to clarify that for sure.
That is not psychic attack.
Right,
right. So that is a completely different area. That has to do more with your moral code and sense of justice. Mm-hmm. But we can utilize that same energy within ourselves. And when we're really connected to our soul energy, we're really connected to our inner guidance, and we're connected to that divine light, we have a sense of what our responsibility is to do in it. So for each individual, the responsibility of how to deal with the energy, and not be in a reactive state, but in a responding state, because those are two very different vibrations.
Correct. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Reacting is sort of feeding into the vibration. Responding is taking accountability and responsibility from one's energy field. So when you're dealing with something that's really tripping you up negatively, energetically, the one thing that is best for you to do if you're completely overwhelmed is get some grounding, whether that's through help through another healer, or psychic, or person who can give you some feedback or some objectivity to help you find your energetic grounding again. Whatever that is to you, get grounded and detach from the source of negativity. You have to first detach from the energy in order for you to respond effectively. Otherwise, you're still in the dance. You're still in us versus them. You're still in combat mode, which is never good in the spirit realm. In the spirit realm, when you're dealing with energy, the more resistant you are, the more combative you are, the more you invite combat.
Sure.
So what you want to do is you want to detach from the source of the negativity immediately.
Yep.
There are some very helpful ways of doing that. The ways I've learned over the years, some are involving a very detailed study of energy, but some are very simple, like stepping away from social media, stepping away from that person who is draining you, limiting contact with the source of negativity. And then the next piece is cut the source of negativity from within you. So that's gonna involve some inner insight into why am I attracting this energy? And I don't mean in a law and attraction kind of way. I mean negativity will purposely, let's say like a person who's a vampire, or the energy. We'll just talk in terms of energy because it's easier. Energy will go right into your weak spot. It will attach right to your weak spot. I've had people tell me when I'm in contact with negative energy, it triggers my trauma.
So
yes,
it can physically and emotionally manifest.
Yes, it triggers your trauma because it goes right for the weak point in your aura. Sure. That is why people who have severe drug addiction or any kind of addiction oftentimes end up having attachments of energy and spirits around them or in their aura, because they're weakening their auric field by the use of these substances so much that things are attached to them, and it becomes very difficult to break the habit, because they have a being who's attached with the same level of energy. So it's in a similar way, we have to be responsible for our healing and our self-care. So this includes working on our responses within our self-healing, working with that trauma, no longer allowing that force of negativity to enter our energy field. Sometimes this comes from an inner awareness of mentally, I will not allow this. Like
Right.
you're allowed to make rules with
Right.
your energy.
Yes, set your boundaries. Yeah.
You're allowed to make rules. You're in command. This is what the energy doesn't want you to believe, that you're not in command. To use fear as a tactic, to use your trauma as a tactic. And I don't mean like we need to be paranoid of these negative energies trying to attack us. I'm saying this because we need to be aware of how the energy actually works so we can be more effective in dealing with it.
Right.
So when we find our energies kind of opened up in that negative way, and we have this extreme anxiety, and we're finding our traumas being reactivated, that is the most critical moment when we have to, I call it seeking safety, where you are going in a process of cutting off that negative source of energy. So when you're talking about, let's say it's a person who's very negative, who's very draining, who lacks boundaries, on an energetic level as well. We're not talking about the sometimes people who go through a hard thing, they can get needy, and they need some extra love and attention. It can be draining for someone who's not prepared. All that means is like your boundaries need to be intact. Right. Your boundaries need to be clear for that person so that you're there when you can provide it, not when you're guilted to. Does that make sense?
Yes,
But when you're dealing with a professional, vampire, that's people who have a pattern. This is an established pattern of not being able to create their own core sense of identity, their own core sense of self, their own core sense of power.
Okay.
People.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, can you define what a psychic vampire is? Like we've talked about psychic attack, but there literally are, and I mean, we use the term, vampire kind of, it is what it is, metaphorically. But you think of Bram Stoker and how they're draining your life force, they're draining your blood. Obviously, we're not saying these people are going around biting people in the neck, but they do have the ability to pull from you and drain you in such a way that's where the term vampire came from. So I just want to clarify that for people that might just now be tuning in. We are talking about psychic vampires, not like literal, vampires.
Yeah.
So there's that.
One thing that you have to keep in mind too, when a wasp stings you, what do? You
treat
swat it away.
Swat
it away. And sometimes the level of the energy that's coming at you requires a response that is just as powerful in the opposite direction. So one of the things that you can do when you're dealing with such a negative interaction is a fear will bind you into that interaction. So you want to get into your heart center. You want to get into here. This is your power point, especially for you sensitives, you clairsentient people. This is your point of power. You're able to have compassion. Compassion is not enabling. Compassion is discernment. Compassion is healthy boundaries and respect for your boundaries. If you don't know where your boundaries are, you're going to be kicked around a lot with that kind of interaction. It's all learning. We've all been through it. We've all had to learn.
Especially when you feel like empathetic towards others, and you sort of become this, and then you're like, what just happened? So
the biggest mistake that I find, and I've done it in the past too, with empathic people who are out there in the world, is we believed, past tense, that it was appropriate for us to heal people who didn't ask for healing.
Correct. Yes.
That is not appropriate. And I am finding the more I delve into this work, the more I'm realizing the more inappropriate it is, because everyone is at their point of healing. Everyone is capable of healing within. What we're saying is that person, poor you, I need to rush in and save you.
Right.
And oftentimes what will happen is you'll get tangled up in that person's lessons and responsibilities for themselves, and you will take on some of that energy that you're not supposed to even be involved in. So when you get into that kind of like interaction with someone, I'm not saying when you are 100% guided to help someone. I'm saying when you have a habit of putting yourself in somebody else's responsibility, you will receive an energetic backlash from that. That is not psychic attack. That is the universe telling you to get the heck out of the way. Get out of the way. This is not yours. This is not your responsibility.
It's not your path to take. And that's a really good point to make.
Yeah.
I mean, because so many, and I mean, I've done it. I've fallen into that where it's like someone's like, but I need help. And I'm like, all right, I can do. And then I realized, you know what? This is so far removed from like, where did I go? And I've done it. And I openly admit that I've done it, but it's, you feel that like, you feel sorry for them. You want to help them. But then I came to a point where I realized if they're not willing to, it's kind of like if you're on the side of the road and you have a flat tire, okay? I might pull over and I might say, hey, do you need me to help you make a phone call? Do you need me to, you want to borrow my tire iron, whatever. But if you're sitting in the car laying back eating donuts and I'm out there changing your tire, like that's a problem. Get out of the car and help me. Don't just expect me to do the whole thing.
Patterns, right? Paying attention to people's patterns.
Yeah. And then I'm the one that ends up greasy, dirty, sweaty, and you're sitting there, and so it's but that's a hard lesson to learn.
It is a hard lesson. And I believe in being good and helping.
We have a question from the audience, and I don't want to miss it because it's getting down in the comments. Nancy asks a very good question back to what you were saying a little bit earlier. She says, can't they disguise themselves so that you do not recognize it at first? This is going back to the psychic vampires. And that's a great question because I've encountered that as well, where they do have this. I mean, they're kind of geniuses at it sometimes, where they really
they're professional.
Yeah. So
are we talking about people, human living people, or are we talking about discarnate energy? So if we're talking about living
human
people,
living in this question, I would think.
If we're talking about living people, they have a way of, I would say that on the most professional level, on the very pathological level of, say, a narcissist, is they will use your empathic, your oh poor you ability against you. So the really thing that they can't use against you is your gut instinct. So this is where a core sense of self comes in. If you already have a compromised core sense of self, it's going to be sneakier, and it's going to last longer. But if you have a developed core sense of self, they might initially get past that, but you'll be on to them.
Yes.
You'll be on to them. The gut will come awake and go, no, listen, right? Listen to me, girl, right?
Right.
So when you are dealing with the world of energy, trust your instincts, trust your gut. This will be a visceral, automatic response. It will not come from a place of judgment. It will come as sort of this spontaneous force of knowledge, really. It will have zero judgment. It will but it will allow you to be completely aware of what you're dealing with and who you are dealing with. So if you are getting the sense that being around someone is compromising you in some way, shut down the level of contact as best you can. You know, some people are hard because there's people talk about family, they talk about, you know, people they work with, you know, people they co-parent with. That takes it's a learning a whole new way of interacting with a toxic person that allows you to stay safe and grounded and boundaries established so that you're no longer getting pulled in and giving your power to this person who doesn't have any power. So what they do is they look for other people to validate or take power from. So what happens in such a relationship over long term is it's like a psychic loop of energy. You're filled with their negativity, their low self-esteem, their lack of core integral boundaries, and they're filled with your goodness. And I've seen it across the board. And so it's a very professional dance, a negative dance between a narcissist and an empath. So trust your gut when you're dealing with people, because no one has the right to undermine you, even if you love that person. And we give power to the ones that we love. But what if that person's an extremely epic level vampire?
Yeah.
And we need to respond accordingly as to how that person affects us. And we can do that without compromising our integrity. Once we you know, it's like we can do that without compromising our integrity. And we can recover from that, because that can be very, very traumatic for a sensitive person to be in that sort of. So do not be afraid to ask for help and get professional help for that, because it can be very toxic for clearing out, let alone the energetic cording and the pure addictive element of being in negative addiction, by the way, of being in that kind of relationship. That's what needs to be cut a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense?
Total sense. So what I'm kind of hearing here is obviously, you know, we've got to, it all goes back to self, right? So we've got to kind of make sure that our bubble is whole and secure and tight, and we don't have all these leaks and, you know, cracks.
Strengthening practices.
Yes. So
strengthening practices are most excellent for maintaining our energetic boundaries. We also are less reactive and less pulled into negative interaction with people. So aura strengthening. Let's talk about that.
Because we've got like 12 minutes, and I want to make sure we get to
we gotta get to the techniques.
I want to make sure we get to the veil being thin at this time of year. Solid is coming up. Obviously, we have, you know, we've got that, and I also want to talk a little bit about some of the warning signs, and we kind of touched on that, like trusting the gut. But strengthening. Let's jump onto that a bit.
Okay, so anything that's aura strengthening is focusing on, just to the basic, focusing on our goals, our dreams, what makes us feel good about ourselves, our strengths, our talents, what is natural and good for us. And on an energetic level, this can also include, for those of you who are energy sensitive, getting Reiki, getting energy healing, strengthening, working with your chakras, developing a connection with source, the divine energy, to work with that. I found that, yes, there are so many different techniques for shielding with the white light. You know, I love calling in Archangel Michael. But when you are focused on dedicating your energy on that integral connection between your soul energy and the creator source energy, a lot of times that's just powerful enough to clear any negativity away. You can also ask that energy to clear your energy and your space and fill your energy entirely so that you're sealed up in this divine light. It's like a cleansing bath, but you're being filled with life at the same time. It's very powerful. That is a maintenance of boundaries energetically. When you perform that, you will also get more aware of what is yours and what is coming from the inside. You can also establish, for those of you who are more psychic, you can also establish a very strong connection and create a connection with your soul, with source, and with your spirit guide, or as I like to call it, your gatekeeper guide. On only allowing source approved information. Does that make sense? Psychic information to come to you. We don't need to be open to everything.
Right.
We just need to be open to what's going to support us. And so that's really helpful for keeping it clear. It's not always going to help us when we're interacting with human beings, because our auras are naturally meant to merge and interact. But it's just more about what is true for me. What do I resonate with? What's healthy for me?
Right.
It's self-care. Also, sage, clearing the energy with sage. I love using crystals. I saw that someone was talking about using crystals. I love my shungite. I love my black tourmaline. Anything that's grounding.
Smoky. Black tourmaline. Selenite is a great gentle cleanser, guys.
I love selenite.
White sage, you can pull that in as well. All sorts of goodies. And like Jeannie was talking about earlier, bringing the white light in. This is something, guys, that you can do. These little tips and tricks. So, if you enter a room and you feel this stagnant energy, and you're like, blah, you can do that right there on the spot. You don't have to be in a room with barefoot singing Kumbaya. You literally can kind of just pull that in pretty quickly and just say, hey, I need to, I need to clear this space a little bit here. And, it can be something that's very personal, very quiet. It's not like you have to draw a whole lot of attention to it, but you can, it can be something fairly quickly that you can do. So Derek brings up a good point too. Cleanse and raise your vibration. Epsom salt bath. Great idea there too, Derek. So thank you for that suggestion.
The higher vibration you are, yes, to add to his real quick, the higher vibration you are, but the more grounded and centered you are in the heart, the less that lower energy even can interact with you.
It can't even touch you. So I've got a fire engine coming down the road, so I'm going to mute in just a second here. Jeannie, walk us through the veil being thinner at this time of year and what that means for us. So.
All right. So naturally, October is the month of sort of the veil thinning, and we have more psychic awareness of specifically our loved ones on the other side, visitations from our loved ones on the other side, energy in general throughout the dimension. So sometimes ghosts, earthbound spirits, sometimes different elemental energies, energy in general from others. We're more aware of the energy dynamics, which is a huge thing. I think that's actually an excellent place to be. You'd rather have the light on than the light off, because you can see what's going on with the light on. That's how I look at this time in the month, is the light is on. So how are we going to use this energy in the most constructive way? And so use it to kind of make a healthy sort of discernment in your life of what kind of energy do you want present? What kind of loving, grounded energy do you want present? And know that you have the absolute right as a spiritual sovereign to release energy or to send it packing that is not aligned with what you need or what you want.
Right.
And that being said, we're all here to learn lessons. So don't feel yourself getting bogged down by negativity. Seek the lesson. Seek the lesson. There is, if something's not clearing, seek the lesson. When the lesson is integrated, the issue will clear more than likely.
Yep.
But really, I love, absolutely
the lesson
love
is integrated. Clear. Yeah. No, I love that because it's true. Yeah. And how often do we do that? We repeat and repeat and repeat until we have learned that lesson. And I mean, that's just karma. You know, we keep doing it until we evolve to the next level. So excellent point on that. Julia, who is one of our regulars, she actually brings up a very interesting, little different question, but something that I think is apropos here that we might be able to touch on. So she's asking, and I'll put this up on screen. I was wondering what you think about cannabis for medical reasons like chronic pain and inflammation. Does this make you more susceptible to energies? Now, of course, Julia, we are not medical doctors and, we can't, all that. But just speaking strictly to the energy, Jeannie, what are your thoughts on that, please?
Typically, if you're using it for medical reasons, any kind of drug will be an ally or work with your energy as an ally. However, there is an element to cannabis that must be observed, and that is the mood altering aspects of the energy, which while it's very soothing to the nervous system, it also alters your mood and perceptions, which can be more opening to other energy, but it can also make you more aware of where you need to place healthier boundaries, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
So anything that alters your consciousness doesn't always, like if it's done for non-medical reasons, can be either a doorway into moving beyond the ego state, or it can be a trap. So we have to look at it on how it's used. When a medicine of any kind is used with respect, it will be an ally. However, when it's used as a crutch to achieve a certain state without, it means that there's more energetic work to be done within the person to naturally go into that energetic state. These are just tools. So I know there are a lot of people who use the tools to get into a certain space.
Sure.
And there's no judgment on that. It's just how are you using the tool, and how often do you need to use the tool, and how far are you along in the space of spirituality when you're using a tool? Because ultimately, when it comes to spirituality, your power comes from within.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't come from the tool.
No.
The tool is an extension of your power, or can be. So is a tool a crutch, or is it helping you? That's on an individual basis, really.
Yeah.
But typically, when you're using something out of respect and it's actually helping you, it's usually an ally. But what I've noticed is because of the mood altering effects, you have to be aware of it's going to potentially make your energy open to things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise be aware of. And when you're mood altered, you're not always in control.
Sure.
So you just want to be aware of that. So when it comes to healthy boundaries, when you're using a substance, create an environment of healthy boundaries. Like I know a lot of people who have used tools to expand their consciousness, but you have to create the environment of respect around that, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. And Julia, thank you for that question. Just as a side note, Julia, I don't know if you've tried CBD or not, but I can tell you, same plant, you get the medicinal and the therapeutic benefits, but you don't necessarily get the psychedelic or the psychoactive effects. So just, something to consider.
Yeah. One last thing that you just brought up, Shay. when you're connecting with very refined, high vibrational energy, it is recommended to have the full experience, not to use anything mood altering, because it creates a wobbling effect in your auric field. So you don't have the full experience of that. So the higher you want to go, you want to be aware of that. For those of you who may find yourself thinking about that in the future.
Makes total sense.
Okay.
Total sense. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, God, this time flew by. I mean, it seems like we just logged on, but
there's a little drop in the bucket. I feel like
I know, right? I mean, we got a lot covered. Derek did have a question, but his question is regarding spirit guides. And Derek, we're actually at the top of our hour right now, and we're kind of trying to stick with the topic of psychic protection, but feel free to get up with Jeannie later, or even privately, maybe book a session, something like that, or definitely log on to future shows, because we're always talking about something wacky and crazy here on Metaphysical Minds. So so this fruit fly, Jeannie, you're gonna laugh, because before the show we were talking about respectfully asking like critters to sort of move along. This fly loves me, apparently. He's been in my face the whole time. So anyway, I'm respectfully asking this fly to leave. No, anyway. Oh my gosh. I think he just showed up because he's laughing at me right now. So yeah. Anyway, guys. All right. So yeah, we are out of time for today's show. Miss Jeannie, I cannot thank you enough for, as always, your beautiful spirit and sharing with us today. And guys, Jeannie's link is right here in the comments. We will absolutely have her back on the show for future topics, so be sure to stay tuned. Once again, if you liked what you heard today, feel free to share the show. It will be available in replay. You can check out our Facebook page. Also, type SPIRIT, SPIRIT, in the comments section, and that will subscribe you to notifications about upcoming shows and topics. We would also love to hear from you guys. What do you want to hear about from us? So the group of people that come together on this show every 2 weeks are from bestamericanpsychics.com. Go check us out. They donate their time free of charge, folks, to help educate the public. So we really appreciate it if you support them in turn. So that's all I've got for today. Jeannie, any final words of wisdom to our listeners today?
Keep it grounded, folks. It's wild out there.
All right. That's the ticket. All right, guys. Jeannie and I have got a lot to do today, and we're going to jump. So I just want to say thank you all for listening. Metaphysical Minds will be back in 2 weeks. And until then, please do take care of yourselves and take care of one another. This is Shay Parker and Jeanne Crescenzo. We are signing out. Bye-bye for now.